Military power in ancient India is traditionally measured by the size of a ruler's terrestrial army. Historians focus on the number of infantry, the reach of the cavalry, and the sheer acreage of land captured. In the early 7th century, that power was embodied by King Pulakeshin II. His elephant corps stopped Emperor Harsha at the Narmada River, a victory that appeared to consolidate his control over the subcontinent. Yet, while his terrestrial victories secured his borders, they didn't explain his influence over the rest of the world. The true theater for global power sat to the west, in the deep Arabian Sea. Dominance on land offered local security, but to reach the Middle East, a ruler had to overcome the Indian coastline's physical barriers. The western coast presented a geographic wall. Shallow estuaries and hidden sandbars made navigation dangerous, while violent monsoon winds routinely destroyed any fleet attempting to maintain year-round presence. Standard naval architecture relied on rigid frames held together by iron nails. When these ships encountered a monsoon storm or ran aground on a sandbar, the wood splintered against the unyielding metal joints, causing the hull to shatter. Pulakeshin II utilized a local, highly specialized alternative. His shipwrights developed a fleet that didn't resist the ocean's kinetic energy, but absorbed it. This engineering solution turned the hostile coastline into a reliable point of departure. By surviving the monsoon, his ships maintained a consistent, decades-long presence in the international waters of the West. Construction began with Malabar wildjack timber. Planks were shaped using hot steam, allowing a natural, curved form without stressing the wood. Instead of iron mails, shipwrights drilled holes along the edges of every plank and bound them together with cords made of coconut fiber, or coir. They were quite literally stitching the ship into a single, flexible unit. The seams were then waterproofed with a compound of tree resin and fish oil, creating a seal that remained intact even as the ship moved and flexed. The physics of a rigid hull are its downfall in a storm. Because a nailed ship cannot bend, the massive force of a wave concentrates entirely on the metal joints, causing the timber to fracture. A stitched hull behaves like an organic structure. When hit by a wave or a sandbar, the coir ropes allow the planks to shift slightly and absorb the impact. It bends where a rigid ship would break. This breakthrough transformed the Arabian Sea into a protected Chalukyan highway, accessible even during seasons when every other navy was forced to remain in port. Pulakeshin used this technology to dominate the coast. He launched an amphibious assault to capture the island capital of Puri, securing a strategic foothold in the region now famous for the Elephanta rock-cut caves. In 636 CE, this fleet faced its greatest challenge, the first Arab naval invasion of India. Pulakeshin's navy intercepted the invaders at Thana and completely defeated the expedition at sea. By securing his western flank against a foreign power, Pulakeshin proved his coastal control was absolute. He had established a stable platform to project his influence thousands of miles away. Control of the sea lanes granted Pulakeshin a monopoly on regional trade. His ships moved textiles and spices across the Indian Ocean with a regularity that land-based routes couldn't match. Because these stitched ships could sail when others couldn't, they became the primary conduits for information. Merchants and sailors returning from Persian ports provided the Chalukyan court with continuous, high-level intelligence on foreign politics. In 625 CE, this intelligence gathering resulted in a formal diplomatic mission to the Sasanian Emperor of Persia, Khosrau II. Pulakeshin was using his merchant fleet to place his representatives directly into the heart of the Middle East. The security of these ships allowed for a persistent Indian presence in the Persian capital. Chalukyan agents didn't just trade goods, they spent years observing the internal fractures of the Sassanid royal family. When the embassy arrived at the Persian court, they delivered exotic gifts, including a white falcon and a gold-woven coat. But their most critical delivery was a series of individual letters addressed personally to each of the emperor's sons. Khosrau II intercepted the letter intended for his son, Prince Shirya. On the outside, in an Indian script, Pulakeshin had included a warning to keep the content secret. Inside, the letter contained a precise date. Pulakeshin predicted that Shirya would be crowned the ruler of Persia in exactly the 38th year of Khosrau's reign. Despite receiving a similar warning from his own court astrologers, Khosrau II failed to act. He resealed the Indian letter and allowed the prince to retain all his royal standing and military allowances. This letter was the culmination of years of deep cover observation. Pulakeshin had utilized his naval access to learn more about the vulnerabilities of the Sassanid succession than the emperor who ruled it. In 628 CE, the exact year predicted in the letter, Chalukya launched a coup. He imprisoned his father and had him executed, ending the reign of the last great Sassanid emperor. The coup triggered a total collapse. Persia cycled through 10 rulers in 4 years, leaving the empire so fractured that it was easily absorbed by the early Islamic Caliphate within a single generation. Pulakeshin II leveraged his position to influence the fate of empires thousands of miles from his capital. He saw the potential for naval engineering to support a global intelligence apparatus. The stitched ships provided the physical foundation for this reach. By building a fleet that could survive the Arabian Sea, Pulakeshin secured the trade and espionage networks that allowed an Indian king to predict and profit from the fall of Persia.